Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. I'm walking into my future as a baby shark. I can't walk out of the store. I don't know
you
shark.
can. Yeah. Because you get a shark after you.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Put it back. Put it back. Put it back. Come on. You got this. You got this. Good girl. Ah, come on. Come on. Nicole. There you go. Nicole. I saw that.
Super. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing really wonderful. I've been looking forward all day to doing this interview, and I'm just very excited. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to interview you guys and to have you share your story about not only how you guys met, but also all the wonderful experiences that you've had since you've been Dr. Joe Advanced students.
It's a real pleasure for us as well to share our story.
I was already excited. I had already watched some of your YouTube videos, and you know how serendipity is with all the coincidences with names, signs, symbols, synchronicities, and so forth. And one of the first synchronicities is not just that we were both Cancun Dr. Joe Advanced students in June of 2019, but you know, there's not too many people running around with the name of Byron. And my brother's name, I have two brothers, and one of them, his name is Byron. So that kind of made me kind of curious to hear your story even more.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and then when I heard, you know, I had seen the video of you guys doing your, basically you had a video journal when you were in Cancun, you and Lewis, and then of course, Nicole was also in there too. And so just watching that whole dynamic and the way you and Lewis explained how you guys were experiencing this Dr. Joe event day by day, it just really drew me in. You sent me the two clips today where you talked about some of the pictures that you sent in preparation for the show, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish you hadn't sent those voice clips. I just want to make sure he says all of that on the show. I'm just really excited for you to, you know, you have this forum for the next hour to tell as much of your story as you can, to give people who are checking out, you know, the whole Dr. Joe thing, give them a feel as to, you know, what you've experienced and kind of go from there.
Yeah, with pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So let's get started. So let me ask you, what was the thing, what made you leave Europe and go all the way to Cancun, across the globe, to go see Dr. Joe? You know, what's your story?
Well, in April of 2019, I attended a Dr. Joe event in Mallorca where I was living. And I really loved it so much that even on the second day, I was looking on the internet when I can do another retreat. And I saw that there was one in July in Portland. So I thought maybe I'll go to Portland. I can visit Vancouver as well, which I really love. And I kind of set my mind on that. But my team leader kept saying that the retreat in Cancun is phenomenal because of the resort. And she said, if you can afford to, go to Cancun. And to be honest, back then I couldn't afford it. But by the time we did our second coherence healing, I was just feeling so full of energy and buzzing. And I knew that something in me changed. And my old self wouldn't be able to afford it, but my new self can afford it. And I would just make it happen. And so I decided to just step into my new self and go to Cancun instead.
Wow.
And Nicole?
Yeah, and meanwhile, I'm in Thailand, and I suddenly come across Dr. Joe's work, and it explained so much for me. And I said, I have to be at that retreat in Portland, in Oregon.
And in the June, I was going to Montana to do instructor training for Theta Healing. So I would go to Montana and then I would go on to Portland, Oregon. I would come back to Ireland and then I would go to Portland, Oregon. Then suddenly I got a psychic email that said, Portland, Oregon is off. And I knew there was somebody there I was supposed to meet, but I didn't know it was romantic. I got the impression from spirit that it was something to do at work. Turns out we do the same work. So it was pretty right. And I decided then that I would have to cancel my training in Montana, redirect my flights and go to Cancun for no other reason than intuition. Made no sense. Like there was no logical reason. And went to Cancun and that's where we met.
Wow. So, okay. So now you guys have both had basically the divine, the energy that is responsible for all of us being here. It made you do basically a course redirect. So now you guys find yourself both in Cancun. Now, if, we'll go ahead and we'll attach the videos that are on your YouTube channel, Byron, where you talk about, you're doing your day one journal entry where you and Lewis are, either sitting by the side of the pool or you're in the pool or whereabouts in that, the Grand Velas resort in Cancun. But tell me a little bit about that first day, because for someone who has never been to a Dr. Joe event, as we all know, having been there, it is really, it really does make quite the first impression that first day. And you both went alone, as did I, and many, many other people, whether they're single or married. A lot of people go alone to this event, and some people, the great majority, don't know anybody when they go. So tell us a little bit about, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? And, what was that like?
I could feel the excitement already before I went. There was this energy buzzing in the air. And then when I got there, just being in that abundant resort just made you feel so good. And it's like you're in a different reality, a different world. Like there's just only good vibes. There's happy people, open-hearted, open-minded people. Everyone is there just to have a good time, to support each other. I remember after my first retreat, which was in Mallorca, I'm like, gosh, I don't want to leave. It's just so incredible. And the same was in Cancun. Yeah. So for me, it was one of the best weeks. And just the people that I met, obviously, her, but not just Nicole, but so many other people I met, I'm still in touch with. They're like my soul family, And that for me was actually something I was really looking for, to meet my soul family. And I got that a lot in Mallorca with my team, which was the flamingos. And we're still kind of like a flock of flamingos, really close. And we see flamingos everywhere now, which reminds us of our connection. And Cancun had to happen to meet Louis and Nicole and Luisa and a few other people that I know and I love dearly. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I see the Dr. Joe event like I see Theta Healing. For me, it's a place where soul families meet. So many people come along just because their soul is called. Like you're ready to go, you're ready to make that transition. I personally had no idea what I was going for. Well, I like the science part of it because I already worked with the energy. I already worked with this brainwave, and I wanted to know he's able to explain what I do. How is that? But other than that, I had no idea what to expect of the retreat. I had no expectation. That's kind of how I live my life, with absolutely zero expectation. I just go as guided. And it was really beautiful just to walk in and see 1,000 people. It's like, oh, all these people are on the same wavelength. That's really cool.
Yeah. So Nicole, I would be remiss if I did not touch upon and have you and Byron both, elaborate about just, you were open, you were open-hearted, you were open, you weren't anchored in an expectation of a specific thing happening. You were just open and receptive, knowing that the divine was providing this spectacular opportunity, this experience. You were just open and had a positive expectation that something wonderful was going to happen. And so you were just in that energy of how Dr. Joe talks about, you have to let go and surrender, which is so hard for many people so hard. I'm going to say many of us, because in the past I was the queen of making things happen, you know, lists upon lists upon lists with categories, subcategories, and subcategories, trying to make sure that I'm as productive as possible, keeping all the plates spinning, making sure that I've got everything allegedly under control. And this is so much better, you know, this way of living where you allow the energy to bring things to you. So talk a little bit about that. And because I think that's at the core of this work. It's also at the core of your theta healing and a lot of how we're living our lives now.
A part of me wants to jump a couple of stories because there's so many synchronicities of the divine guiding us along the way. Do you want to say about Denver?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So this is like a cosmic joke, really. Like I always say, the divine is always playing cosmic jokes. Like, who invented humor, right? The creator of all that is. And after the Dr. Joe event, I was planning to go to Denver, Colorado for one day to do a theta healing training, but I was the only person to register, so nobody else was going to be there. And so it was cancelled. Yeah. And we're in the bus going back to the same hotel, and Byron asks me, where are you going after the event? And I said, I'm going to go to Colorado, but my training's been cancelled and I don't know, my driver's license is expired. So I actually have no idea what I'm going to do in Colorado for a day.
Yeah. And me, I had planned nothing for the week after the retreat. I was literally surrendering to the divine, trusting that the unknown will bring me something amazing, and just kept it open. And so as she mentioned Colorado, I'm like, okay, interesting. And so on the last day of the retreat, on the Sunday morning, I was thinking about this, and Denver wasn't really calling me, but Boulder was. So I checked how far away it is and saw it's only half an hour. So I decided, okay, maybe I can just go to Colorado and go to Boulder. And as I go back to my seat, I sit down and I see a woman like 3 meters away from me with her back towards me. And on the back of her shirt, it says Hecho en Colorado, which means in Spanish, made in Colorado. And I'm just looking at her just like in amazement, like if that isn't a sign, I don't know what is. And as I'm looking at her, she turns around and comes toward me. And I see that on the front of her shirt, it says El Camino, which means the path, the road. And I'm just blown away. And I shared this story with her, how I was wondering what to do next week and that this is the perfect time. And she's like, oh, I'm so happy to be part of your synchronicity. And, you know, actually, I was wearing this shirt yesterday. And as I came in from the outside, I was really warm. So I took it off, put it on my shoulder. And by the time I found my seat, I lost my shirt and I couldn't find it anywhere. And it wasn't until the end of the day that she saw the shirt lying somewhere in the corner of the room, decided to wear it again the next day. And that's when I saw it. So I was really guided massively there. And as you can see by the photos, we did a hike in the Rocky Mountains, which was amazing. We really both felt strongly that we know each other from other lifetimes.
Oh yeah, this was really big.
Okay, so you have to elaborate on that about, you know, you said the feeling was really great. So how is it that, I mean, it's impossible to know who picked up on this first, but, you know, what was your first thoughts, Nicole, where you kind of felt like, wait a minute, you know, even though your left brain is saying, I obviously have never seen this person before, but I kind of feel like I know them from before. So unravel that Pandora's box of mystery for us from your perspective. And then Byron, if you would do the same.
Yeah. For me, I had been single 6 years before I met Byron. I had absolutely no interest in a man. I was very grounded in myself that it was either going to be absolutely perfect or it can just go to the side. I have no interest in settling. And when I met him, he was really shiny. He was like really sparkly. It's like, whoa, this man is pretty special. And I remember when we first met, the common question is, what's your name? Where are you from? Yeah. But we didn't have that conversation. Whatever our conversation was, there was a lot of laughter.
She was the only person on the whole retreat who did not ask me where I'm from. And I'm like,
He said to me, like, you didn't ask me where I'm from. I was like, I don't care.
I go, you could be from Mars or yeah.
And funny you should say that, because I actually did some energy work on him, and the first thing that came in was the Pleiadians. I was like, yeah, you're not from here. But it was very, very, was it still in Cancun or was it in Denver? I said to you, this is going to sound really weird, but I cannot call you, at the time your name was Boyan, and I said, I cannot call you Boyan. You're very familiar to me, but not by that name. It's too weird. I'm just going to call you B.
Oh my gosh. Okay, another synchronicity. That's my nickname for my other brother. His name starts with a B. And that's what I call him.
Wow.
Nice.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow. Okay. So you didn't feel that Boyan was really in your being because of that feeling of him, you having known him from a previous lifetime. It's like Byron or Boyan didn't fit, but B.
Yeah. And funnily enough, he's had many incarnations with that name. Yeah. With that letter.
And for me, it felt weird to call her Nicole as well.
Yeah.
But I knew as we were hiking, she was walking in front of me, and I just had this flash of like, this is not the first time I'm hiking with her.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain the feeling, but the thoughts that come as those feelings are like really in your whole body. It's kind of it's not something that happens often, obviously. Yeah. So you pay attention to it. So what other thoughts were going through your head, Byron?
Well,
I can't understand her accent, but maybe I'll get beyond it. No joke.
Okay, really? Was the accent an issue between you?
No. Well, in the beginning, I was struggling a little bit with the Irish accent. Now it's absolutely fine. So here's something really that I don't know how to explain yet, but 3 weeks before I went to Cancun, I went to a friend of mine's apartment because he had DMT, which is like a substance that the brain produces.
Right, methyltryptophan, yeah, the pineal gland produces that.
Exactly. And, knowing about Dr. Joe, he talks about DMT and how it creates visions and things like that. I was like, oh, I'm really curious about this DMT thing. And so I went over to smoke some DMT and
I'm like, I didn't know. I've heard that people take DMT, but I had no idea if it was a tablet, if it was liquid, how. I'm like, I'm surprised that you smoke it. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah, they extract it from plants as a powder, and then you can smoke it.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a really short burst of geometrical patterns in all kinds of colors. So it's really fun, visual, like kaleidoscopic things, right?
What you see sometimes in meditation then, when you're really deep. Okay.
Yeah. And after the third puff, let's say, the third inhalation, something really amazing happened, because once those geometrical patterns faded, I was suddenly having a conversation with someone that I knew would be the woman of my life. And I was just so amazed. I was literally laughing while I was on this trip because of the humor, the sense of humor, the wittiness that she had. She was shameless and fearless. So those three things, the humor, the shameless, the fearless. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And this is actually what I want in a woman. I didn't even realize it, but it was so clear to me, like, I want to be with this woman. And then 3 weeks later, we met. We had this great connection. Cheers. Great sense of humor. And the same thing when we were in Boulder, just that shamelessness, how she was dancing in the mountains and singing, and just, I was like, who is this woman? She's the one I'm gonna be with.
She's guileless. Oh my goodness.
And as the DMT wore off and I told my friend about what I just experienced, it felt so real, as if it was something that happened yesterday, and I was just telling him that memory. It wasn't like a dream that is kind of vague and yet this thing happened. No, it was like, this literally happened. I had a conversation with her. I don't know if it was part of my soul talking to her soul. I don't know.
Yeah, it is hard to explain, but just like when we go in meditation, you're in that 5D, and Dr. Joe describes it, I think, better than anybody else I've ever heard language it, where you're no one, nobody, no thing, nowhere, no place and no time. And you're not the identity of this body, but you're just that pure consciousness. And then you can, there's no space and time. So you can go forwards, you can go backwards. You're just kind of like the all. Sounds to me like you were able to go to the point in time where you already knew her in like the now, but you also were able to go back where you knew her from previous, experiences. And that's why when you move forward in time where you knew her in the now, you had that familiarity because you had the knowing of all of it, not just a point in time, which is, like right now, this is a point in time. You had a greater perspective. Oh my gosh, this is really good.
I enjoyed that when you can go up, like this is the laws in our matrix, and when you can get beyond that and go up there and look down, then you see all of it, all of these things happening parallel. So I go back to Ireland, right? And one day I get a message from Byron, and he says, "Look, I seen your boat," and he sent me a picture of a boat, and it said Nicole on it, and it had some numbers.
Because I would go running along the sea in Palma de Mallorca in Spain, and there's all kinds of yachts, and I noticed that there's one with the name Nicole on, because my little cousin in Bulgaria is also Nicole. And I took a photo of it and sent it to Nicole, and she just burst out laughing, saying, "Oh yeah, it is my boat. Just look at those numbers." And on the registration of the boat is her date of birth.
It's 4/12/89, the 4th of the 12th, 89.
Oh my God.
And it said B.A. Nicole. Byron, our daughter AYANA, Nicole.
I know it's hard to argue with when you see the signs, the symbols and synchronicities that are so blatantly obvious, you're like, I mean, how can you, how do you argue? How do you resist? How do you just know that you're on the right path?
Yeah, because this was less than a month after we met, and I saw this, and she pointed out the numbers, and I was just like, whoa, like that can't be coincidence, right? Like the odds would be 1 in a trillion.
But the humor of this is, I think the divine is always really having a joke with these things, because my family, who wouldn't be into this consciousness exploration, they're just sitting there scratching their heads in Ireland over a cup of tea going, Jesus, how do you explain this? How do you explain this? Because they have no idea of this sort of world. And I just think that that's God really having a good joke. I really like it.
Yeah, and I can totally see that as you're telling us about this. I can totally picture your family going, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, that can't possibly be. It's like, I go, what are the odds that, and the thing is to have one sign, okay. To have 2 signs, let's say in a week, okay. The thing is, when you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in 1 week, and they don't stop, and it's like this week and next week and the following week, and you keep on telling them, they're like, what the heck is going on? That's not possible. It's like, surely there's some of this has to be made up. And then when they're with you, they're going, how is this possible?
So now we go to the next synchronicity, or AYANA. So it's August, and my birthday's in December, right? 4th of the 12th. And my friends bring me to this glamping site because they want to check it out for a hen party. And I get there, and then I see one of my friends from London, and then I see some friends from Ireland, and suddenly it's a surprise birthday party for me 3 months before my birthday. I know, on a Thursday afternoon.
What?
And he walks out. We had only met in Mexico, 1 day in Denver and a weekend in Rome. And he walks out in my local village in this glamping site at my surprise birthday party.
So how did he know about the surprise party?
I have never told my sister about any guy since in the last 6 years. And I told her about him. And she said if Nicole mentioned a guy, she obviously likes him. So this is either going to be really, really epic, or she's going to absolutely kill me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We were actually meeting in Germany the next day, where one of your friends, I skipped a little bit.
You kind of skipped something.
So I go to Mallorca in August. He invites me over to Mallorca in August, and this was on the 8th of the 8th. And this was 8 weeks after we met. It was the Lionsgate portal, for anyone that knows that, and that was the day we conceived AYANA.
Wow. Yeah, that is. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, and especially because Nicole was told she might not be able to have babies.
Yeah.
Because she had polycystic ovaries.
Biologically, it doesn't make sense that I was able to do that with ovulation and all of these three-dimensional things. And one thing I say to people is that your children are your divine timing. For me, you signed up to have your children, and you will have them. So no matter what people say, you can let all that fear go, because you will have them.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
And on top of it, we use protection. So she's here. She's such a, and she was born in May, so she's a Taurus. She just she
me.
comes at everyone.
Nice.
And
What was her birthday?
15th of May.
15th of May. Okay, I'm the 8th. I'm May 8th. So interesting. So she's the 15th of May. Very cool. That's 2 5s. 5 and then 15.
Yeah.
And so chances of her becoming pregnant were so slim. We're like, okay, if she does get pregnant, and then it will be a work of the divine, we're just gonna go with it.
Yeah, because it's 8 weeks after we met, right? And then we had the most magical week that week. Oh my God. And then we're in Germany, and he says, I think you're pregnant. And I say no. Now, honestly, I did think I was pregnant, but I just didn't want to scare the life out of me. So I was like, no, play it cool. I'm not pregnant. No. And we're about to get on the train to go into the Alps. And I got a pregnancy test, and I run to McDonald's, and then we're standing, and then I have it, to the bathroom to take the test. And then we're standing outside the train, and he goes, let's look. And then we look, and the time is 14:11, which is his birthday. And the pregnancy test says positive.
Wow.
And then the train arrives at that moment, and we just kind of in a cloud, we walk on the train, and we sit down, and we just look into each other's eyes for minutes, and like
crying,
tears, and
like we're having a baby.
We're having a baby. And I said to her, I remember, you remember what I said, no?
Not one cell in my body wants to not do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys, it sounds like you were in such heart and brain coherence, not only individually, but also with each other, that everything just, it's like, I mean, that's like the ultimate, the heart and brain coherent state. You're in that. You've got as a base foundation, you have the emotion of love and that vibrational frequency. And so from there, you're just going up, joy, exhilaration, it's just up.
Yeah. And I remember what Dr. Joe talks about, when you feel whole and complete, you don't really need anything, but that's when it comes. So we had both worked on relationship stuff and exes and things like that. Mm-hmm. To really feel happy by ourselves. Yeah. And as Nicole said, like she would either go with the best for her or nothing. And I was the same. I've been single for 4 years, and then I had 1 or 2 more relationships, but I was like, no, it's not really resonating with my soul. And then when we met, it was ticking all the boxes.
That is so wonderful. Like, I just think, that is, I think, such a powerful message that you both had for yourselves, because I've been singing that song of, it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong person, and to be in the happiest state where you're living your life, where you are in true joy, you're doing really what you want to be doing, and you are in a state of just being loving yourself, you're happy. And that person, when you come in union with them, when they're the right person, they'll only make you happier, but you're already happy, and it's not the other person's responsibility to make you happy. So now you have two people that come together in that state. Well, that's just exponential joy.
Yeah, something I want to share on that actually, that I find to be really important, that I noticed this year when we were teaching, was there's various faculties of the mind. One being, you can be intuitive, right? Or you can use reason. And when I was single, I was always really intuitive. I just did everything with no reason, no logic, and I never needed validation. I would just turn up in places, and then I would discover later on why I was guided there. But then when we were in a relationship, I noticed that my fear mind would come in, and these old programs would come up of, but now I have a family, now I'm in a relationship, I have to think of another person rather than always put myself first, right? And then once I was aware of that, I was like, no, we live our life as he looks after him and I look after me, and we look after AYANA. But individually, we are both the most important people as ourselves. It's not each other.
When you're being true to yourself and you're taking care of yourself and you're not sacrificing yourself per se, so that you get out of touch with yourself because you're not honoring the feelings that you're having, that's not a loving thing for you to do to yourself. And it's definitely not a loving thing for you to be doing to the other person, because it's self-injury, if you will. So when you can honor, and just like putting yourself sounds like it's selfish. And, the word selfish in English has a very negative connotation to it. But really what it's meaning is to stay in touch with the truth of who you truly are. And if you just come from a place of love, where you unconditionally love yourself and you're not criticizing, judging, blaming, buying into whatever the ego, fear, familiar past, and whatever negative lower emotions that are from things that have happened in the past, when they don't rule you, and you just stay in that pure love, then, oh my goodness, well, that's just the place where you can stay in that open-hearted place, where you have that heart and brain coherence, and you're vibing higher because you're feeling good too.
Yeah, when you fill your own cup first, that's when you can be the most selfless as well, and be of service to others. We, for example, we don't believe in compromise. We always want to feel really good within ourselves, and know that in that way we show up as the best version of ourselves in a relationship. Nicole, for example, she values yoga and meditation a lot, and she needs it. It's her time. So if she wants to do that 5 times a week, then we make it happen. Same with me and playing tennis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, I do this, so therefore you have to do this, or we have to do this thing together, even though one of us doesn't want to do it. No, like everyone is free to do what they want to do.
I really want to share about AYANA and this magical girl that she is, because she's just turned 1 and it's been incredible. I don't know if you know about how she guided us to the Philippines, how she told Byron her name.
Yeah, so I want to definitely have you share with how, first of all, if I recall, there was something about Byron having a dream about having a daughter. So tell us about the timetable of that and how her name came to be.
Yeah, it's not a dream, but for the last 3-4 years before she was conceived, I felt intuitively that I was going to have a girl at some point. Like it's as if her soul was in my presence from time to time, and I could tune into it. And when I would, interact with my little cousin, or like just girls, it would feel such a close bond, as if a future self of me is already having that bond with a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so a month after we discovered we were pregnant, Nicole told me that she would communicate the name to us. And I hadn't heard that concept before. I knew that, we choose our parents and our family and our country and all that, but she said that we choose our name as well. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And what happens is, on one day, I was having an osteopathy practice in Mallorca. My last patient comes in and he puts his phone down on the desk. And I see a photo of him and his 7-year-old daughter. on his wallpaper. And I go, oh, wow, that's a really beautiful picture. And he says, thanks. I go, what's her name? He says, AYANA. And I'm like, huh, I haven't heard that name before. I really like it. And he says, ah, thank you. It means beautiful flower in Ethiopian. I go, okay, cool. And then the following day in the evening, we sit down with Nicole to meditate. And we decided to put on some meditation music. So I open Spotify and I hit shuffle play. And the first song that comes on is called Beautiful Flower. Okay, that's quite interesting. And then not that night, but the following night, I'm having this really vivid dream that I'm standing next to a long lunch table where people are having food. And I'm talking to a patient of mine. And she asked me, so do you guys have a name for the baby yet? And I turned to Nicole, who was standing over there, and go, what do you think? Without saying anything, she just walks to the table, grabs a knife, bangs it against the glass, and announces to everyone that she's going to be called AYANA.
Wow.
Tell her this, and then we're having brunch that day with a medium who communicates with angels, and I shared the story with her as well, and she's got goosebumps all over her, and she's like, oh my gosh, she really wants to be called AYANA. And so from that day, we started calling her AYANA to everyone, and she was already, our little girl.
Yeah, with no, what do you call them, ultrasounds or anything to check.
Oh yeah, we didn't have ultrasound. We had one at 12 weeks to see if it's a twin or not, just because you never know. It's good to prepare a little. And then once we were already in the Philippines at 21 weeks, we confirmed the gender. And that's it. We've had 2 ultrasounds, no medical checkups, no nurses, nothing. We just trusted, because obviously the girl wants to be here, right? So we just trusted it's all going to be good.
Yeah, I really want to share this. B has been so incredible to me in so many ways, because he is so aware of, remember that transcendental moment you had where you realized you were enough? Do you want to share that? Because it's important.
Okay. So I'm reading, this is before I went to Mallorca, so probably February 2019. I'm reading the book Becoming Supernatural, Dr. Joseph. And it was a chapter on the space-time meditation. And at the end of the book, he describes how to do the meditation. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And I put myself in a dark room and I started meditating. And I don't know what happened or how it happened, but suddenly I was in the void, like I've never been in the void. And I'm having these flashbacks over my life, kind of like a person who has a near-death experience has the life review, right? And I realized the red lining through my life that was responsible for how I've been feeling and thinking and judging myself and all of that. And that was the fear of not being enough. As a kid, I was extremely shy. I was the shyest kid of my class. I always felt like there was something wrong with me and I didn't understand myself, why I was here, what my place was. And just having this understanding of I'm not enough, and that just brought a lot of awareness to my life. And as this was happening, this voice, or I don't know, I was getting downloads that if, I'm the same energy that created every human being, every animal, every plant, tree, every mountain, every ocean was created by source energy, right? And therefore, if source created everything, it's impossible for source to be not enough. And since I'm part of source, it's impossible for me to be not enough. And that was this huge realization, and I just cried for 20 minutes. Like I hardly ever cry, but this was just release after release after release, and having the life review and just sending love and compassion to my younger self. That was very, very liberating.
Wow. That is really extraordinary. That is natural.
Shifting that belief of I'm not enough was what started to bring more abundance into my life, which allowed me to afford to go to the Dr. Joe retreat in Mallorca.
Wow. Yeah, because the belief I don't have enough stems from the core belief of I'm not enough.
That makes, whoa. Yeah, that
Yeah.
really resonates with me. So the belief that I'm not enough makes you believe that there isn't enough
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're all one with everything that is.
Yeah. And when you understand that everything is this energy, and I haven't had the faith and love and understanding I have of consciousness now, trust me, I did not have this 10 years ago. I will never forget sitting on a roof in New Zealand after both my parents passed away when I was 19 and 20. I went traveling the world. I really had to understand. I was really upset. I was really resentful of God. I was really resentful of the world. And I was sitting on a roof smoking with a friend of mine, and I said, do you ever think it's all just effing pointless? And he said to me, my life in general, Nicole, or life in general, or my life? I was like, the whole thing. What I actually said was, give me a minute, I'm not sure. And then I went on this journey, and then again, this understanding that you're a part of this oneness, and this oneness loves you. You're actually being loved into life. Which is very life-changing in all aspects. So to be able to trust and to know that it's got your back is very, very, like, now when anything happens, worry doesn't come in because we say,
Something's in.
we've got this.
Yeah.
And I think why you brought this up was when AYANA was born, right?
Yeah.
So when AYANA was born, Nicole had this fear of what if she dies in her sleep? You know, I have to look at her the whole time. Like many parents have that belief of, fear of cot death. And I go, but honey, she obviously wants to be here, right? She came against all odds. Like she's not gonna come here to then die in her sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to be here?
Yeah, and just that alone, and this is what I mean about Bee's ability to see things, like to pull me out sometimes. And I went, oh, you're totally right. And then I just left it. She could be asleep. I was like, she's fine. And we decided after we met each other to go to the Philippines. We wanted to go somewhere just to meet each other or just to spend some time together. Coincidentally, Visa was a good flight to the Philippines, so we decided to go. Just a week before our flight was due to go, I'm doing facilitator training for a modality called Inner Dance in Paris. They tell me that it was founded in the Philippines, so I should go and visit that place.
Oh, wow.
They should be closed, but apparently they were just having an impromptu session.
Well, 3 days before our flight to the Philippines, we hadn't even decided which island we were going to go to. And then Nicole remembers that inner dance was discovered in the Philippines on the island of Palawan by a man named Pai. And so she's like, well, I could send an email to Pai and see what happens. So she sends an email to Pai and he says, normally we're closed until next month, but we are actually doing an immersion week next week. And so I guess you're meant to be here. And so we fly over, we go to Palawan, we meet Pai and his lovely girlfriend in this eco village that they created in the jungle with all these wooden and bamboo houses. And I had this amazing week. And that's when we met our midwife, Isa, who lived there. And we just connected and we knew that we're not taking the return flight home. We're just going to stay here and give birth in the Philippines.
And then COVID hit and we're in the Philippines by the beach. Everything's taken care of. And I mean, when you open up to the divine, I mean everything was taken care of. Our midwife was an expert in natural birthing and she taught us so much about protecting the child's consciousness when they come into the world. Because when we're adults, we're learning how to raise our frequency and raise our consciousness. But why? Because when we were babies, our consciousness was cut off. We were already a part of all that is. But then we are born into this bright light. We're cut off from our placenta. We're cut off. The umbilical cord is cut. We're shocked, we're exposed, and we start to develop the programs, right? Everything that Dr. Joe talks about that gets stored in the lower energy centers, that all begins from birth. And we got brought on this beautiful journey of how to keep AYANA's consciousness in tic-tac shape as best we can.
Wow.
And when the time was right, it was time to move back to Spain. But we were free from all the fear programs and because people have a tendency to tell you the worst case scenario. And this keeps people in the known reality, right? Because it's the fear brain talking. But this could happen and this could happen.
Yeah, they were like, "You're gonna give birth in the Philippines?
Yeah, you're crazy.
Not even in a hospital?" So we ended up having a home birth. We bought an inflatable pool. Nicole did an incredible job. Like, hat off to her. And it was so magical because we had our midwife, Isa. We had a native midwife who just learned it through generations.
Didn't speak any English, but she held my hand on the side of the pool and said, "Nicole, I love you."
Oh, but you know, she speaks woman. There's an energy, the energy transcends language. And
Yes.
so that spirit of love is, it can communicate without the words. Even saying the words in her own language, you could feel the resonance and the intention behind it. So it didn't matter.
Yeah. And Pi and his girlfriend were there as well, helping, and it was just so beautiful. Candles everywhere and lovely music. And what I loved after that is Isa taught us about a lotus birth. And a lotus birth is where you don't cut the umbilical cord. You just let the nutrients keep flowing from the placenta to the baby as long as there's nutrients. And then at some point it dries out and it just falls off by itself after 3 or 4 days. And we really feel that gave AYANA a really smooth transition into this world.
And we just intuitively stayed in a dark room for 40 days. And then afterwards we went out into the world.
Well, it's not that extreme like a dark room. The curtains were open during the day and stuff like that.
It felt like our dark cave. I didn't leave the house for weeks. Just stayed there.
So we are grateful that we weren't bombarded with visitors, let's say, because we only had a few friends over there, and then we had a lovely woman called Shawnee who would come to the house every day and help us with the cooking, with the cleaning. We had cotton diapers for AYANA and she was washing them every day, and it was just the
God
perfect
gave us
place.
everything at every time. We didn't have to look for anything. Everything came to us, and that's what whoever's watching this, and I want you to realize that when you open up and you don't listen to the known reality, like Dr. Joe says, you have to get beyond it, because your future is created by your now. So you have to think better than your environment reflects, and that's faith, right? God's got me. And I say to people, even if I'm wrong, even if God doesn't exist, the nature, like this energy is not real, there's been enough studies to show the power of positive thinking. So blind faith will serve you, even if I'm wrong.
So really, there's no such thing as being wrong, because one of the things that Dr. Joe says, that people who say it's like, okay, for example, there was one woman there in Cancun who she had a metal rod in her neck, and so she was in some sort of car accident where they had to actually put in a metal rod in her neck, and it didn't matter. When it came time to do the coherence healings and her body was moving and the energy was flowing through her, guess what? The energy is so all-knowing, so infinitely perfect, that it knows exactly what it needs to do to go around and override whatever issues are inherent to that metal rod, and it can still heal her. There's nothing that's impossible. So nothing can get in the way. Once you get out of the way, that's the only thing that really can get in the way of the divine, is us, because the divine will not, overpower us and take our free will away. We have to have the free will where we say, okay, I just surrender to God, the divine, the universe, whatever name. The universe doesn't really care what you call it. So whatever language you speak, or, if you don't believe and you're an atheist and you just want to call it energy, really, that infinite intelligence and that source doesn't care about semantics. It's irrelevant. So it will override whatever's necessary to fix and to accommodate whatever needs to be done. End of story.
100%.
This is really fantastic. I love how you guys are both you're both like singing a melody at the same time, not necessarily the same note, but you're harmonizing with each other. You're on the same page of music, and things are literally coming to you in every way, shape, or form. I got to say that this is really a divinely inspired way of living. Like Dr. Joe would say, you're the embodiment of truth.
Thank you. Yeah, we feel very blessed, and I didn't know about the concept of divine life partners before I met Nicole, but divine life partners are basically compatible soulmates that share a life mission, and we do everything together. We teach together online. We have a community.
Our mission is to help heal human families so that they can live in alignment. You know, like your child is a sovereign being. They've got feelings. Like it makes me emotional just thinking about it. They're not crying for no reason. Like we're so heavily programmed and conditioned to suppress ourselves, to suppress our feelings, put everybody else first, and put the baby last for some reason. Like the baby has to keep up with our schedule. It's just crazy. We both work for ourselves as guided. We don't do anything in a structured way. Our structure is when we're guided to do something, we do it. And then we were so in Western reality, even to the extent that we created a program and we were online a week after AYANA was born. Some people might think like, that's crazy, what? And it was amazing because we actually had an astrology reading a few months later, and he said, your first baby will activate your teaching. And I was like, yeah, so much so that a week after she was born, we were online. And a month after, I was teaching with her strapped to my chest.
I just got the chills from you. I've had that happen a few times during this interview, but as soon as you said that, I'm like, I could feel the vibration going through my body. Wow.
People go against their intuition all the time, right? They go into the fear of, I can't do that. That makes me a bad mother. That makes me a bad father. I'm irresponsible. I've had people say to me, you can't have that. That's irresponsible. I said, there's nothing wrong with my child. Like even when I did the modality inner dance, it's, you know, when you've been at a Dr. Joe event and you see people with the Kundalini and they're having this really extreme experience physically, there's a lot of movement in the body. As a pregnant woman, some people were like, can you do that? Like, should you do that? Is that safe for your baby? I was like, it's absolutely fine. But they're so afraid. We're so programmed. Like women have to sit down and relax and do nothing. And it's like, I think exercise and energy is good for my child.
Good, yeah.
But to follow the intuition, to follow the divine, and to question everything.
I love that. To be divinely guided.
Yeah.
Wow. Basically, both of you are in the place where you take divinely inspired action on a daily basis. You wait for that divine inspiration. It's not like compulsion or you feel like you're pushing yourself or forcing yourself to do something. No, as you feel the inner prompting to move forward in a certain direction, then yeah, this feels right. I'm gonna go with the flow.
I have to say that a part of this process, because I believe that everything is creator's universe and not one modality has all the answers, because creator created everything. So if you want to explore the universe, so you go and you might have aromatherapy and you might have Taoist, you might have acupuncture and you might do a Dr. Joe meditation and you might go to all of these places because it's all creator. And where am I going with this? I'm not sure where I was going to go with that. I'm getting so excited.
I think you were saying that you're not pigeonholed into just one vein of, modality to do it just this one way, but, because creator created everything that, just like in our body, we have our veins. It's not just like one vein that goes through your whole body. You have a whole like map, a network of veins that go through all sorts of different places, sometimes big ones, sometimes little ones.
Thank you. I got it back. Since exploring all of this, we started to explore different elements, and that is things like astrology and human design and these things about knowing yourself. I think a really good way to start to observe when you get stuck into the old paradigm is to see your unconscious. and to know when you've gone unconscious, okay, when I behave like that, that's an aspect of my unconscious. I need to be aware of that. For me, like I have a core wound of separation. When I see things as being separate, I go, okay, that's something I came into this life with. We're not separate, we're all one. Now I'm gonna shift my behavior. So just being aware, because yes, we live divinely inspired, but sometimes my mind, the little matrix, the little unconscious, the ego, whatever, the shadow side will come in and say, Nicole, you need to go and you need to teach class, you need to do this. And then whenever I hear that voice, one of us will catch me and go, no. Everything is fine. Go, everything is good.
Nicole has a thing that when she hears something twice in one day, that's a sign from the devil
Oh yeah,
for her.
big time. It's how I've started a lot of things, a lot. Yeah, nearly everything.
So if you hear something twice in a day, that's a sign.
Yeah, that's just her agreement with source.
Creator. Yeah.
Like a marker in 3D.
Yeah. Because it comes out of nowhere. It comes out of absolutely nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
She these verses in one day, all the time.
Yeah, I that resonates with me so much because one of the things over the last probably 10 years that I've noticed is that, first of all, there's no such thing really as coincidences, and everything is at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. And even as I'm speaking these words to you, for example, I had a voicemail message from my best friend who lives in Hawaii, and she was rejoicing because today, she's a teacher, so it's the last day of school, and she's like, yay, I got out early and I finished everything an hour before, so I had plenty of time left over, I had plenty of time to spare, I had plenty of help to get everything that I needed to get done today, the last day. And then as she was talking about things, in the voice message about, she got to a part where she was talking about, oh yeah, I need to, keep on with my meditations, and I need to revisit the Sedona method to release and let go of things that don't serve me. Just at that moment, an ambulance siren started wailing as she was speaking. And I knew, as soon as I listened to that, I thought, yeah, it's an emergency. You need to let go of those things that don't serve you. They're harming you. It's an emergency. Let go of them now. So I, texted her back and saying, I've got to send back to you the voicemail message that you sent me so that you can listen to it and you can hear the ambulance. The timing is impeccable at where that siren went off, as in, yeah, this is an emergency. Pay attention right here, right now, about these words that you're saying. You have no idea how this is a big deal for you. And I also thought that's also, because I really believe that people show up in your life and we are mirrors to each other. Mm-hmm. So that's also a message to me that there are things that I have to let go. Just as she's having, there's a lot of things that her and I parallel walk with each other. So there are things that I have to let go too. It's not me just pointing the finger at her, because there's 3 times the number of fingers that are pointing at me when I go.
That as well. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, yeah. I keep on, practicing, accepting, receiving, embracing. That Cancun event we had to walk that 55-foot yellow I-beam that was 3 inches wide, 55 feet up in the air, which was pretty scary. And then we had the other challenge, which was that big black net where I don't know how many people were around in a circle, men and women, all sizes, all shapes and so forth. But we had to put our hands and give our back to the net and then fall backward, right? And you would have thought that would be easier to do and less scary than walking the I-beam. And mind you, before that event, I used to be afraid of heights. So I really had to psych myself up and let go and surrender, and then just trust that Dr. Joe knows what he's doing. No one's going to die here, yada, yada. But when it came to the surrender exercise where we had to drop and fall backward, I knew that the net was strong enough where the people were strong enough to catch me, because I'm little. I'm only 5'1". I'm very petite. I'm like barely 100 pounds. So that was not my issue. However, I was really, really concerned and really worried that, oh my gosh, what if when I hit the net, because I had been hit by a bus just a few years before, back in 2016. So it's one of the things that led me to Dr. Joe's work was I had a traumatic brain injury, neck injury, back injury. I had injured my leg. And so my fear was that as soon as my body hit the net, that I would have this unbearable pain in my neck, my back. And, you know, once you've had a neck or a back injury, when the pain strikes, there's no comfortable position. There's sitting down, there's no relief. Sitting down, laying down, there's no position that you get relief. And it is just a horrible searing pain. And so I thought, oh, last thing I need to do is fall on that net and re-injure myself. From a left brain perspective, it didn't make sense for me to do, because it's like, obviously you're going to re-injure yourself. There's no doubt about it, because you're falling, period. You know, I hurt myself getting into bed, just not positioning myself right on a pillow. So my left brain was going like, alert, alert, don't do this. Not a good idea, bad idea. And I thought, no, that's my ego trying to keep me in the familiar past. And I just remember I had to keep on talking to myself. I'm like, you know what? I really would rather go do the 55-foot I-beam, you know, way up in the air. I'd rather do that again, because I did it and I know I can do it again. And I'm controlling how quickly or how slowly I'm taking each step. Whereas here you're free falling until you actually hit the net. And then sure enough, you know, they caught me. I landed lightly and there was zero pain whatsoever. And I thought, phew. But when I came back, I thought, you know, I kept on remembering and milking the feeling of that falling and then them catching me, and there was no pain. Everything was taken care of. And one of the ways I was able to recreate it was just standing on the edge of my bed, where the foot of my bed hits the back of my knees. And I just let myself fall on the bed. So I still have the sensation of falling, and I just now land on the bed. And anytime I feel like I need a little primer, a little something to remind me, yeah, it's like, you know what, let me go back and think and feel what it was like to just let go, surrender, accept that the divine has everything taken care of, and I'm just going to fall and I'm going to land gently like a feather. And so sometimes I'll just fall back on my bed and I'm like, yeah. And then months will go by. I won't have to do that again. But I think that's a very powerful feeling to experience, because the truth is, like you said, Nicole, and Byron, you too, the universe has our back. It has everything figured out. And even in the light of things that are unwanted, that really don't look good, you know, that's just a temporary thing. And the pieces of the puzzle, you know, if you focus on the negative and you push and resist that, then that cements the unwanted. But if you just release and let go, those things can go from particle back into potential waveforms of energy and rearrange themselves, where things could be monumentally better. That could just be a course correction to improve things.
Yeah, one of the quotes that we use quite often and we share in our community, Quantum Manifesting, is everything that happens to you happens for you, right? Because as long as you're in the mindset of these things are happening to me, you're in the victimhood mentality, and they will just keep presenting themselves to you in order for you to learn the lessons. But when you say, this is actually happening for me, what are the lessons? And then you collect those lessons and move on, then it disappears, right? It's like when the mailman wants to deliver a package, once you've received the package, the mailman isn't gonna keep ringing on your door every day.
True. That's true. Yeah, the package has been delivered.
I really want to share one last thing about, because you sort of been mentioning like reflected reality. Everything is here for us. And as we were leaving the Philippines, do you want to tell a story?
Yeah, so we were living about 4 or 5 hours drive away from the main city where the airport was.
This is an example, by the way, of when I did something out of fear and not out of love.
Say that again?
Okay.
It's an example of when I did something out of fear and not out of love.
Yeah.
Oh, powerful, powerful.
So we were staying in this beautiful villa with private pool on the beach in the Philippines because it was COVID, and we were paying what you normally pay per day. We were paying per month. So
we're doing some good manifesting.
Super cool place, like dream resort, right? And we packed all our stuff, put it in the car. We went to say goodbye to some friends, and as we came back to the car, the rear right tire was flat. And I'm like, gosh, Nicole, seriously? Like, I know she energetically created this because she didn't want to leave.
I was crying.
We were 11 months in the Philippines. We never had a flat tire or anything go wrong with the car or scooter, right? And just on that moment, as we were about to drive to the main city, this flat tire showed up.
11 months you were in the Philippines, almost a year.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, we got the tire fixed. We drove to the main city. We slept overnight in a hotel. Next morning, about to drive to the airport, same tire, flat again. And anyway, we managed to get to the airport and take a flight and come back to Europe. But I have a book called The Body Is The Barometer of the Soul, which explains physical ailments, what is the emotional meaning behind them. But at the back of the book, there's a thing about the car as well. And whenever one of the things goes wrong with the car or breaks down, it also has an emotional meaning. And so the rear right tire is you don't want to go in the direction you're heading.
In the physical direction.
Yeah.
Because
the car's an extension of you.
Yeah.
Everything's an extension of you.
Yeah.
I would call my coach when our blender kept breaking. I was like, it's the third time I've broken the blender. What am I not getting here? And she's like, blending energies. I was like, okay, will it stop breaking now?
So yeah, that was one of the few examples that Nicole was in fear instead of in trust. But,
because I really, really liked her life in the Philippines, and over here in Europe, to me, was chaos. And we were a new family, and as a new mother, like, I'm really passionate about conscious parenting. Really, really. If anybody's watching this and wants to know more, come and follow me. It's really close to me. And so I just really wanted to do the best for AYANA. And what was best was to stay in the Philippines for 5 months. But then what was best was to come back to Europe. But I felt so safe there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my parents had moved to Mallorca. My brother is in Mallorca, so I knew that it would be a good thing to come to Mallorca and meet the family. And now she's super happy that we came.
Oh God, so happy. That child is so spectacularly happy here. It's beautiful.
Nicole was also concerned whether all the traveling and the moving would be okay for AYANA. So when we had the Vedic astrology reading, he saw in her chart that you think you guys are traveling a lot? Wait till she grows up. She'll be traveling a lot. Like, she just put her in a backpack, she'll be happy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is so fantastic. My gosh, I could probably talk to you guys for the remainder, like another 6 hours, and we probably still would have so much more to talk about and uncover, because there's so much, when it comes to conscious awareness and how we really are limitless beings. And we are, one of the very first day when I was in Cancun, the first time we went outside to do a walking meditation, and it stuck with me ever since. I think I heard, it was like a download. It was kind of like a voice, but not the voice the way we talk. The communication is different in 5D than it is on the 3D earth plane. But what I heard was, I'm one with the one, I am the one. And I thought, I'm like, I'm one with the one, I am the one. I'm like, oh, I love that. I'm one with the one. I don't talk that way normally. Now I do, because once I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm one with the one, I am the one. And then I remember as I was walking on the beach, I was like, I'm one with the one. And I just got more joyous and more happy. And then I started crying. I'm like, I'm one with the one, I am the one. It was like realizing it and recognizing it and understanding and feeling it and knowing it and comprehending it. And I'm like, why has no one ever told me this before? I'm one with the one, I am the one. And so from that day forward, every single meditation to this day, I always say that. whenever I'm doing something with with one of my private clients, a one-on-one, even when I do with groups, I always put that in there. I'm one with the one. I am the one, because as they're hearing it, they're hearing that they are one with the one, and they are the one. And even if they don't understand at a deep level yet, it will sink in. I believe that that's something that is at the core of who all of us are. And the more we recognize that, the more we embrace it, the more we sit with it, we allow it, that the more our awareness expands, and the more we become, I don't want to say conscious, but we do it's like the awareness of our consciousness expands outside of the known, what they teach us in science, what the universe is composed of, with the solar system and the galaxies and so forth. But there's so much more, like Byron talked about earlier, and he used the term the void. I like to use the term the black velvet void, because it's that place in 5D where there's just this black, it's the void. There aren't planets, there aren't stars or anything. It's so all encompassing. It's where really the light, where the source, that's where everything, I think, begins. And I think that's whenever I've gone to manifest or heal anyone or guide somebody, I don't really heal anyone. I'm guiding somebody to help them, heal themselves. But you're in that no one, nobody, no place, no thing, nowhere, no time, the black velvet void, where there's infinite realms of possibilities.
Yeah, I see it as the white light. I go back to a white place, to a white void.
Yeah, that comes from Theta Healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys do the thing where you go to like in that white, when you're in that void, you go to where the center of the universe is, where there's like that little, it's like, it starts off like a tiny little, almost like a little starlight, and then it grows as you get closer to it. It just grows and grows till it showers over you.
I do that from the inside out. So I look at my heart and I go into the deepest aspects of my heart until all you see is a little tiny white light. So the microcosm and the macrocosm, because as within, so without. Yeah, it's really nice. There's loads of ways you can play with the mind to get to that sense, that expanded sense of oneness.
I love what you said.
Yeah, it's
I
beautiful.
am one with the one. I am. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, like I said, that came to me, and I cried at, there's a lot of us, obviously, we cried at that Cancun event, but that was, for me, there were several game changers that I had, but the fact that it happened on the first day, and it's like, I'm one with the one, I am the one. I'm like, oh, wow. It's like, wow, it's like, I've never heard that before. I'm like, that makes so much sense. And it was just so profound. So I'm glad that it resonates with you too. And, use it. I encourage everybody to use it, because I think it's a really, just a beautiful thing. So if there's one thing that you want everybody on the planet, heck, I'm not going to limit it to the planet, because, as we just said about being one with the one, that we are the one, and we're connected to everything and everyone and everything. So there are probably other beings in this space and time that we're in that can benefit from this too. So any like, is there like a main thing that you want to express or communicate right now that you want to share with the world?
You're loved as you are. This was a really big awareness this week. You're not loved for who you are.
Because some people don't know who they are.
Yeah. You're loved as you are, in whatever state of being you're in. You're loved as that. Yeah.
And what I also learned is that everything that comes on our path, we can handle, right? And we got this. So I used to worry a lot about money. That was just a weakness of my life. And at some point last year, I realized that throughout all these years, I've always had enough food, paid the rent, paid the bills. Like even when I had little, somehow things worked out, and I was never homeless, right? So actually all those decades of worrying were useless. And so something changed in me, and I stopped being worried, because it's just a waste of time. So just bringing that awareness, I think, is pretty powerful to know that you're always supported, you always got this, you can handle everything that comes on your path, and your future self will tell your current self it's all going to be fine.
And now, this was so good, but there's one last thing I've got to share. This is so good as it comes in. You cannot, God has so got your back. One of my teachers rang me and said, Nicole, I'm giving you a free place on my course, a 2-for-1, because Byron was already signed up. Okay.
It was a soulmates course of Theta Healing. Quite applicable.
But the reason, which happened weeks later, was because there was a woman on that course that I was supposed to connect with, because I met her during a session, and then God kept telling me, meet up with her, meet up with her. I met up with her and I said, tell me about yourself. She spent the last 20 years working with the people that I want to work with. We're aligned, our souls are here to work with each other. So God put me on that course. I didn't have to pay for it, I didn't have to look for it. She rang me and said, Nicole, you're on the course. Okay.
Wow.
It never stops, you know?
You know what? That is a perfect way to finish this, with a ... not a period, but it does never stop. It's infinite. The things keep on unfolding, and as you're open and allowing, the divine has your back. And you know, Oprah says, you know, God can dream a bigger dream than you can even dream for yourself. I mean, she's someone who obviously is very conscious as well. And she says she never in her wildest dreams could have ever expected or imagined or dreamt in her 20s that she would be where she was, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or now. It was, it was so outside of her realm of possibility, and yet look at where she is. And the same is true for us. Anything is possible in any area of our lives. It doesn't matter whether it's healing whatever condition in our body, physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially, spiritually, etherically. It doesn't matter. I'm sure you guys have heard of, in Cancun 2019, we had Tomas, who manifested first $30,000. Then he manifested money in his sleep to the tune of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or more, which has not stopped. He's still doing that. It's been over a year and a half. Then he manifested another $25,000. Then he manifested $100,000 as a wire that came to his bank account. And so he realized, wow, because he didn't care about money, he was like, well, okay, because he wanted to heal his knee, but the whole thing was, okay, I don't care about money, so let me just put a mind movie. Let me do a few of these things, and I'm going to meditate just a little bit about manifesting unexpected money in my sleep. That was the two things: unexpected money and money in my sleep. It would come in a surprising, unexpected way, and the rest is history. We know what happened next, and now he knows. He goes, well, he's made so much money that way. He goes, well, now he knows it's not contingent upon his work, that the divine doesn't really care what it is that you're trying to manifest. It's all the exact same thing. You do it from, a clear intention, an elevated emotion. You marry those two together, appreciation and gratitude, and let it go, and boom.
Yeah.
Now you two are not only together, you found each other. AYANA is here. Your businesses have, dovetailed together. And how good can it get? Well,
nothing is too good to be true.
Apparently it can get pretty good, and it's only getting better. Okay, so you have a story about AYANA and the number 8, which is, that's like my life path number.
Who is it?
Oh, wow.
Yes, so she was conceived on the 8th of the 8th, 8 weeks after we met. And she also happens to be the 8th child in her family. She's got 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
Oh my God.
When she was born, she was
born 8.88 ounces. 8 pounds and 8.8 ounces.
Which equals 3.88 kilograms.
And each number that has to relate to her adds up to 8.
Yeah.
The day we kissed, the day we went to the Philippines.
If you do the numerology, it's always an 8.
It surrounds her all of the time. The day we had our bank card for her, and I went to the bank and we were using her bank card, and I turned around and then the license plate behind me said Leo, which was a 888 on the car, just one car behind me.
When she was born, I was 33. My mom 55. Together, that's 88.
Oh my gosh. This girl she's an 8. She's going to have 8 in everything she does all the time without her even doing anything, obviously.
Yeah.
And now we're having signs of our next baby coming in.
But maybe that's for a different interview.
Yeah. But a lot of numerology, a lot of synchronicities coming in already for the next baby.
Oh my gosh.
We're getting this communication.
Yeah.
Thank you, you two, for being here on Love and Money Secrets TV and sharing your story with us and sharing the world. Anyone who is interested in the work that you guys do, we'll be sure to put a link to your website and your contact information. We'll also connect you to Byron and Nicole's YouTube channel so that you can check out their awesome videos. There's lots of wonderful content on your YouTube channel. You want to give a shout out to the name of your YouTube channel so that people can hear it too?
It's Byron Dobrev and Quantum Manifesting. 2 channels.
Yeah, and all I'm starting now on Nicole Mary is for conscious parenting and conscious pregnancy. I'm just sharing everything about it's really super interesting. So if anybody wants to know about conscious pregnancy and parenting, go to Nicole Mary. For quantum manifesting, and for Byron Dobrev.
Well, actually, the website is still my old name, boyandobrev.com.
Okay. Well, we'll put all the information in the description and your YouTube channel again so that people can get in touch with you guys. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate your taking time to do this. Yes. So I send my love to you from California to Spain. And you've got a place to stay here when you come to California. I think I mentioned my mother's family is actually originally from Palmas de las Mallorcas. So it's funny. I haven't met too many people. I've met lots of people from Spain, but not from Palmas de las Mallorcas. So fantastic. Well, thank you guys again. Take care. Much love always.
Billion.
Thank you.
Ciao for now. I love you both.